Greetings and grand rising, Nubians. Welcome to this next episode of Keith Morris at the Movies. Today I submit my review of the movie Bob Marley, One Love. It's the movie biopic on the life of reggae superstar sensation, Jamaican champion, respected world-renowned freedom fighter revolutionaire, Bob Marley. This movie was directed by Ronaldo Marcus Green and stars Kingsley Ben-Adir as Bob Marley, Lashana Lynch as Rita Marley, and she had a remarkable performance. I hope she wins something for this. James Norton as Chris Blackwell, Anthony Welsh as Don Taylor, as a host of others. Ronaldo Marcus Green, most recently, you might remember him as the director of the movie King Richard. It's the movie about Richard Williams, the father of the Venus and Serena Williams, the tennis stars. And it starred Will Smith, who actually won an award that was overshadowed by some of the events that happened before that. And that's unfortunate that that was overshadowed. That was an accomplishment for the Williams sisters, Richard, on the celebration of their father, Richard Williams, and of course, Ronaldo Marcus Green. But we're not going to delve too much into that. Let's talk about Bob Marley, One Love. It's the epic story of how reggae icon Bob Marley kicked adversity in the buttocks. And it takes us on a journey through the lens of his family, on his life and his revolutionary, life-changing music. It starts off when Bob Marley is already famous, 1978, and ends in his untimely demise from cancer, a rare form of skin cancer in 1981. It was a tumultuous period for the country of Jamaica. There was political uprising, and there's division between two political parties. There's the more conservative Jamaican Liberation Party led by Edward Ciega. Then there's the communist leading People's National Party led by Michael Manley, and he kind of threw things into gear or a circle, a vicious cycle of outside interference when he visited Castro in Cuba, and then the United States was like, we're not going to have another communist country in our hemisphere and have to worry about that. So at that time, that was near the height of the Cold War between communist Russia and the United States. So the country was being ripped to shreds and from outside forces as guns and cocaine were flooded into Jamaica. We know what that does. That can take a peaceful place with a peaceful people and turn it into a violent, turbulent, tumultuous place. That was done also in another place not too far from Jamaica. It's done in the United States as crack cocaine and guns were flooded into the Black communities, and we know what happened there. And to highlight that, Joe Madison, also known as the Black Eagle, and Dick Gregory, the famous comedian and world figure, they protested outside the CIA and were arrested many times, protesting that. And there was this big town hall meeting in California where Auntie Maxine Waters excoriated the CIA director at the time for attempting genocide on us. So if you want to destabilize an area, you just flood it with cocaine and drugs, and that's what's done in Jamaica. Now, Bob Marley became a Rastafarian, and as a result, he was very spiritual, very religious, and it was reflected in his music. Each song is a sermon in its own piece, a sermonette, if you will. And there's a message of love, call to action, be it unity or fighting. And Bob Marley was a fighter for freedom. His song Zimbabwe was used by Zimbabwean freedom fighters to kick the British out and take control of their own country. And the freedom fighters, they did similar to what Haiti did to the French. And so the freedom fighters said that song inspired them. They didn't feel like fighting any further. That song told them, Zimbabwe, we're fighting for our country. And so this movie is also a love story. When you look at Rita Marley, was in the midst of the struggle. She juggled being a mother, being a singer, part of the I3s, the infamous I3s. She was also a soldier for the cause. Make no bones about it. When you look at the movie and you see Bob Marley and his bandmates, and they're running everywhere they're going to play soccer, football, as they say. Um, they were very fit. And even, I was in the service, back in the day, that was one of the things you did. You stayed fit, you ran together as a unit, and I love seeing that. But getting back to Rita Marley, I think she's the real hero in this movie. It's always somebody who's unsung and part of that whole thing. And Bob Marley is not Bob Marley without Rita Marley. Bob Marley tries to pull the country together in the midst of this upheaval. And so he says, let's do a unity concert. We're going to bring everybody together. But however, 2 days before that, and I'm not sure who was behind the attack, but he is attacked in his own home. He's shot. Rita Marley shot in the head. The only thing that saves her is that the bullet, her dreadlocks, her dreads saved her, kept the bullet from penetrating her brain. And so Dan Teller, the agent for Bob Marley, his business manager, he shot 6 times. Miraculously, they all survive. And 2 days later, Rita checks herself out of the hospital and performs. And so does Bob Marley. They're like, I think he got shot in the chest and in the arm. And it was like, we're gonna be defiant. We're not gonna let them win. If we don't play, we win. But what that attack did was it really hurt Bob Marley, because when your own people do it, sometimes it is your own people. He said, in the midst of all that I've done to try to help my people, and this happens, I don't care about the political differences and the outside forces. We're Jamaicans. We are one people. And you're going to do this to me? So he went into exile for his own safety. And he went to London. And while he was in London, he made use of that time. He said, I need to change my sound. The music is sounding the same. It's sounding, I guess in my words, he's saying stale. I need to make a change. And so sometimes when you're going through the worst period in your life, like the blues singers, she was a mean mistreater. I gave her everything and she left me for another man. I went to prison and I came out. Those are usually the people that dig deep, and they have the best songs and the best stories. And I think that's what happened with Bob Marley. He went and he looked at his sound, he looked at his music, and he produced one of the greatest albums ever produced. In the midst of, knowing that not all skin folk are your kinfolk, he produced Exodus, which could be probably the one of the greatest albums produced in the 20th century. So, betrayal, let's get back to betrayal. That's something that some people you never get over. It's hard. But getting back to the movie, I think that, since I've seen this movie, just the other day, now it's like every day I got to play Exodus, that album on rotation, heavy rotation on Apple Music. It's like I'm just playing it, because every song has a meaning. And my Lord, that music is so wonderful that he produced. So how do I rate this movie? Is this something you should risk COVID and risk catching the flu, and make sure you protect your neck? You don't want ringworm or anything like that. Is it something that warrants that? I would say yes. Yes, go out and watch this movie. Support it. I give it 4 out of 5 fat fingers. It's only an hour and 45 minutes, so it's not one of those long movies. If you're looking for an epic movie telling his entire life from humble beginnings in Trenchtown and all the things he overcame and his transformation into the spiritual realm of Rastafarian, and his family and his music and all of that, then this doesn't do that, and it's not meant to do that. This is a brief period in his life as told by his family. It's a celebration. It just shows this instance in his life, and uses that as a microcosm of, what he really stood for just in that brief period. Now, I would welcome that a look, something like what Spike Lee did for Malcolm X, where you show the whole thing. I would love to watch that. You know what I'm saying? And it's warranted. I would definitely go for that. But that's not what this is. I love when families get together and they tell their own story. They tell their own narrative. You don't have this salacious lies and different things. Well, it's going to sell stories. It's going to do this. Well, it's not true. And it's somebody else's way of looking at you and how you're portrayed outside. I think you should own your own narrative. Keep your own royalties, your masters or whatever. And that's what this family has done. They kept their story and they told their own story. Now, if they want to sell it and do whatever later, that's on them. But at least they got their story out. This is what it is. And I commend them for that. So yeah, I would welcome a more in-depth look into the life of Bob Marley. And let's talk about what happened between him and Peter Tosh, another great person who taught Bob Marley how to play guitar, and Bonnie Whaler and his input. It's definitely something that I would love to watch, and I'm sure the people of Jamaica would love to see that as well. But that's not what this is, and it doesn't have to be. So congratulations to the Marley family on the job well done. Ziggy, big ups to you. And people, don't take my word for it. See it for yourself. I think it's worth it. It's only an hour and 45 minutes. It's worth the investment of the time and effort to get to the theater and watch it. And that's all I have to say. That's my review of Bob Marley, One Love. Peace. I'm out.